Hey there guys, we just posted a video called Top 10 Movies of All Time. Now, we're going to have some other top 10 videos coming, some more movies, categories, video games, technology, basically anything that we can think of that we can come up with a top 10 for, that's what we're going to do. Just because we like doing it and we think it's fun to kind of rank things and see where they fall. Now, I haven't even posted that video to YouTube yet. It's actually in the process of uploading right now, but I can already tell that there's going to be some questions about what makes these movies the top 10 of all time. And for future reference, this is going to kind of apply to anything that we pick a top 10 for. But what makes these the top 10 movies of all time? Where are some movies that you guys like that don't show up on this list? Why are some of these movies in here that you don't even think should be on there? Well, we've got a pretty good explanation for that, and obviously no one can sit down and make a top 10 movie list of all time or top 10 anything of all time and not have some discrepancies between other people or some disagreements, and that's what's cool about it. You guys can come on here and you can post what you think the top 10 should be. Why should we have included something else? Why should we have left something else out? That's really where we want to go with this and kind of engage things and kind of see what you guys think really are the top 10. But for our list, we're going to look at a couple things. First off, what we do is we sit down separately, and I'll go through and I'll make a list of what I think some of my favorite movies are. And I don't necessarily limit that to just 10. I just start to make a list of what are some of the best movies that I've ever seen. And whether it's just two of us or a few of us, everybody goes through and does that and makes that list up. After that's happened, then we'll sit down and we'll start to kind of pick from there and make a top 10 list. Just because we've got things kind of sitting in front of us and it's a good visual representation. So after we've got our top 10 down, then we'll go through and we'll try and create some kind of order. Because at this point we haven't ranked them 1 to 10, it's just a top 10. What are 10 of the best movies that we've ever seen? So after we've got a kind of comprehensive top 10 list, we'll go through and each of us will rank what we think the order should be in. 1 to 10, what we think is number 1, all the way down to number 10. And each person does that without seeing what the other person's ranking it. After we do that, we sit down and we look at it and we take an average of those scores. Regardless of how things come out, we take an average of what we all scored it, and that's how we give it its score. In a tie, we'll kind of talk about it and everybody will kind of make a compromise, or we'll bump one up or down. But generally that helps us come to a conclusion of, in a consensus, this is 1 to 10. Alright, for example, I really love the Star Wars saga. The original trilogy, the prequel trilogy, just all of them and the story and everything. I'm not going to really go into why, but it's just one of my favorite sets of movies of all time. So I ranked it at number 2 on my list. I just went down and that was number 2 for me. Well, another person who ranked our list, they gave it an 8. And so what we did is we sat down, we averaged those together, and ultimately it came out to number 5 on our list. That's not exactly where I would have put it, that's not exactly where he would have put it, but in the big scheme of things, and with this particular list, that's just where it happened to fall. And that's cool, because you don't just come up with one person's side of why this movie is awesome and why this movie sucks. It all kind of evens out. Now, another question that we know that we're going to have is, why did we technically include more than 10 movies on this list? If you look at things like The Godfather and Star Wars and Lord of the Rings, we went ahead and included all the movies out of those trilogies or that saga for this list. And the reason we did that was because we felt like there was a giant, all-encompassing story that went with these movies versus just the individual movies. Now, you can definitely sit down and argue one of the Star Wars movies may not be as good as another Star Wars movie, and that's fine. What we wanted to focus on was these big, encompassing stories. We just started making lists, and because some of the Star Wars movies fell into our top 10, we went ahead and included all of them just because it's one giant story. Same thing with Lord of the Rings and The Godfather. All the movies in there are really great, so we just went ahead and looped them together and made one spot for those movies. Another thing that's important to note is that each of us used our own guidelines and qualifications when it came to picking our top 10s. There's no guidelines or rule book or anything like that that made us choose what we chose, but it's just really personal preference. I know I think about things like replay value, my first feelings towards the movie when it first came out. I may be a little bit swayed by some of the awards that it wins, but that normally doesn't come into play a whole lot. Things like that. Basically, what are things that make it a top movie to me individually? And from there, we just kind of sit down, and that's how the list comes about. I know you guys probably don't all agree with all these movies, but I hope you enjoy seeing our side of it and seeing what we thought was some of the best movies. If you have any comments, please feel free to leave them down below, and feel free to list your top 10 movies, and then we'll sit down and kind of talk about what comes from there. Take care.